My name is Ewan Cameron. I lead the team within Lonrho Hotels. Lonrho today, Chairman, it's probably worth explaining, is a Pan-African conglomerate. We're active in 18 different countries in the continent. We very much recognise and celebrate the diversity of those different countries. The conglomerate structure goes from agribusiness. We are the largest exporter of fresh agricultural product from southern Africa. We have a considerable infrastructure around OR Tambo, and we now supply the likes of Marks and Spencer's, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Costco and Walmart in the American market and the European names I've mentioned. So very much taking Africa to the global market. We do infrastructural support, whether that's quick builds with regard to quick and easy accommodation for mining industry or education. And here in South Africa, we're very pleased to have recently entered a major agreement with one of the provinces for rolling out new classrooms. We have airline business, which is Fly 540, which is the #2 airline in the East Africa Union. I'm sure it will come up again and again. I think East Africa Union has a lot of good examples of where Africa potentially is moving itself towards. Fly 540 has a hub in Nairobi. As I say, it's #2 to KQ. We are now the domestic airline in Angola from around about May last year, and we launched the Accra hub, which will be the West African hub, in October last year. So very much providing that infrastructure and trying to enable Africa to move east-west, which we all know has been impossible in the past unless you're willing to walk many miles. My part of the business is a hotel business. We commenced with the Hotel Cardoso in Maputo, and we're now looking for a Pan-African rollout of the hotel business. There's a little bit of a chicken and egg position for us as a hotel company as well as a conglomerate, in that some markets we're holding back a little bit. What Henny mentioned with regard to Beira, we have a large piece of land in Beira. We're being put under a lot of pressure to develop that land, but what we're trying to see is more growth with regard to infrastructure, whether that's the coal line, which is now in, which is really blossoming the Beira harbour, or looking at the other infrastructure within the city itself and allowing it to behave as a more diversified economy. While was mentioned in the previous section, for instance, in Gabon, that almost forgotten small African country on the west of the continent that has phenomenal oil reserves, has a very sophisticated economic structure with regard to particularly the French banking support of past. Really, as Lonrho, we want to invest in that market because we think already it's got good returns and it has potential for considerable growth, even though it's a relatively small market. So I think what I'm really saying is that we look at each market and understand where the opportunities present themselves. Somewhere like Nairobi, for instance, the new city orbital ring road is generating some new nodes within Nairobi, which as a hotel company is interesting to us. Well then, if you go to somewhere like Kinshasa, and we've recently taken over the former Intercontinental in Kinshasa, we were very pleased to see the fact that somebody had spent money on new traffic infrastructure, and we're trying to improve the flows of traffic within. If you know Kinshasa, the congestion is almost as bad as Lagos, but maybe not quite. So the beautiful new traffic lights went in last October, and then by the middle of November stopped working. So sometimes you can be really encouraged, Chairman, by some of the infrastructural projects that have been put in place. But again and again, I think in all these markets we need to be thinking about the longevity of them. You asked me for maybe 3 things that I think would encourage us to increase our investment and be more enthusiastic with regard to some of the big infrastructure projects. I think first off, I would like financial institutions to help more of the governments to really be more creative in how they can release some of the capital they have within those countries. Historically, governments have been investors in infrastructure. How can they lever that capital? How can they be in a position where they can go into PPPs or renewal of that infrastructure? Secondly, institutions and banks, when you're looking at new developments, time and time again in my side of the business, I get a hard time for people saying we don't like hotels. We just don't like them. You know, they're high risk, they ebb and they flow. But actually, a hotel is a catalyst in our world for growth. We're not putting these in leisure destinations, we're putting them in ideally urban nodes. As urbanisation happens, we would like to believe and can argue that the hotels actually add value to the growth of the node. So rather than looking at it on its singular structure, if you like, look at how that city, whether it's Beira, whether it's Juba, whether it's even regeneration of Harare, look at how that destination is going and what the economies are within that growth. And thirdly, for us, it's real estate values. We need to get to a stage where transactions are a lot more transparent and there's a lot more commentary within the financial world about the value of some of these net assets, because that will then perpetuate new deals. As Lonrho, we have just embarked on an evaluation of an oil service port in the west of Ghana, very much servicing the Jubilee field. Lonrho operates today a port in Equatorial Guinea, a free port there, and we did a lot of servicing of the original pioneering work for the Jubilee field. Obviously very pleased obviously with the Figarta finds and what that's meant for the Ghanaian economy. But the conversations then at governmental level, very much from the President down, have been how can we capitalise on that? Almost to Hemi's point at Figarta, how do we add value? And Tim's point at Figarta, how do we make sure we have the stakeholders at the most senior level involved? In Ghana, we're looking towards an election in December of this year. If you know anything about Ghanaian politics, the tradition would be the administration will stay on. The last elections, it was a very tight election, and obviously still a compliment to the country with regard to how smoothly that transition took place. But what it means for us now is that we're looking towards a project of around about $400 million, and the uncertainty the election throws up, because they are our primary, if you like, cheerleaders to the project, is concerning. We've done a lot of work with a number of blue chip banks and institutions with regard to the funding aspect. And for us, we're finding ourselves a little bit delayed by governmental involvement, because we have to keep on getting approvals. They've given us, if you like, a mandate, an exclusive mandate to do the development. We're still trying to make sure the numbers work. So specifically to your question, Chair, is there's a misalignment between how, if you like, the governmental decision model works and how a commercial decision model works. And if there was a means within the Ghanaian government to short circuit some of their decision making, it would enable us as a commercial organisation to reach the decision quicker, and because it's so fundamental to the Ghanaian economy, actually give them a benefit earlier, which, as we all understand, due to how the structure of the oil agreements is done, they need that haste.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.